You're standing in the water aisle at Loblaws, Sobeys, or Metro, reaching for a bottle of water, believing you're making a healthy choice. But recent testing across North America has revealed disturbing facts about bottled water brands sold right here in Canada. From microplastics in virtually every bottle tested to PFAS forever chemicals that accumulate in your body, your health may be at risk in ways you never imagined. As of the time of making this video, we've compiled findings from Consumer Reports, Environmental Working Group, Health Canada advisories, and independent laboratory testing to expose the bottled water brands Canadians should reconsider purchasing. From contamination scandals to misleading marketing, we're uncovering everything they're not telling you at the checkout counter. Starting with one of the most talked about bottled water controversies anywhere in North America, Nestlé Pure Life at number 15. Nestlé Pure Life sits on shelves across every major Canadian retailer: Walmart, Loblaws, Sobeys, corner stores nationwide. The clean blue label and Pure Life branding suggest pristine quality. But independent testing over the past few years has told a very different story. A 2018 investigation by Orb Media, in partnership with the State University of New York at Fredonia, found microplastics in the vast majority of bottled waters they tested. Nestlé Pure Life was one of the brands with the highest counts, with some samples reportedly containing close to 10,000 plastic particles per liter. Tiny fragments of polypropylene, nylon, and PET believed to shed from caps and bottles during production and storage. That study helped trigger class action lawsuits in the US, accusing Nestlé of misleading consumers about what pure really means. The company responded with its own lower test numbers and defended the product, but the damage to the Pure Life image was done. For Canadians, there's another important nuance. In Canada, Pure Life is sold and labeled as natural spring water from protected underground sources rather than as municipal tap water. In other markets, different Pure Life products have been sourced from treated public supplies. Either way, the Orb Media findings highlight the same uncomfortable reality. Even so-called pure bottled spring water can carry significant microplastic contamination. So when you're buying Nestlé Pure Life in Canada, you're paying a premium for water that still comes in plastic and that independent lab testing has flagged for high microplastic levels. The label says Pure Life, but the particles floating in that bottle tell a more complicated story. Number 14, Aquafina. Aquafina is everywhere in Canada. Gas stations, vending machines, grocery stores coast to coast. PepsiCo markets it with imagery suggesting natural purity, but here's what they don't advertise prominently. Aquafina is sourced from public municipal water supplies. According to reports from the time, PepsiCo was pressured by consumer advocacy groups to amend labels to include PWS, public water source, so Canadians would know this isn't spring water. The company had used mountain imagery in advertising, which critics argued was intentionally misleading. In terms of taste, water experts have consistently ranked Aquafina among the worst-tasting bottled waters in blind tests. Professional water sommelier Belinda Chung listed it among the 5 worst, describing it as flat and developing a plastic-like taste when left sitting. The Environmental Working Group criticized Aquafina for lack of transparency, failing to disclose water quality reports on its label. While it hasn't faced major contamination scandals in Canada specifically, you're paying $2 to $3 per bottle for what is essentially filtered municipal tap water that could taste like plastic. When you see Aquafina in Canadian stores, you're looking at tap water run through reverse osmosis, bottled in single-use plastic, and sold at a massive markup. That's not premium hydration, that's processed municipal water in disposable packaging. Number 13, Dasani. The Coca-Cola's ubiquitous bottled water, sold across Canada in virtually every retail location imaginable. But Dasani consistently ranks among the worst brands due to its notorious taste and history of misleading marketing. Here's what Canadians need to know. Dasani isn't natural spring water. According to company disclosures, it's municipal tap water processed through reverse osmosis filtration. Coca-Cola then adds back a proprietary blend of minerals including magnesium sulfate, potassium chloride, and salt. The result? Many consumers describe Dasani as tasting artificial or chemically. In blind taste tests documented over the years, it frequently lands at the bottom. One professional water expert gave it a scathing review, describing it as having poor hydration capabilities compared to mineral-rich waters. What's particularly concerning is the parent company's environmental record. A 2024 study revealed that a typical liter of bottled water can contain hundreds of thousands of nanoplastic particles, small enough to enter your bloodstream and organs. As a product of Coca-Cola Company, which has been consistently named among the world's top plastic polluters, the sheer volume of Dasani bottles produced contributes massively to Canada's plastic waste crisis. Canadians are paying $2 plus per bottle for municipal tap water with added minerals that many find unpalatable, packaged in plastic that's polluting our environment. When I see Dasani now, I see filtered tap water with a chemical taste contributing to a waste crisis. Number 12. Smart Water. Smart Water sits in Canadian supermarkets with sleek bottles and scientific-sounding marketing about vapor distillation and added electrolytes. The price point, often $3 to $4 per bottle, suggests premium quality. But consumer protection organizations in Europe told a very different story. According to reports from the time of their investigation, German consumer watchdog Food Watch gave Smart Water the Golden Windbag Award for the most brazen lie in food advertising. Simultaneously, Dutch consumer groups awarded it the Gouden Winde for identical deception. Their conclusion, as reported, it's ordinary water sold via a scientifically sounding but completely unnecessary production process that provides no real benefit. Here's what actually happens, based on disclosed information. Coca-Cola takes spring water, vapor distills it, removing all natural minerals, then adds back negligible amounts of calcium chloride, magnesium chloride, and potassium bicarbonate. Water experts have confirmed these trace electrolytes provide zero meaningful nutritional benefit. You're paying $3 to $4 for water that had beneficial minerals, got stripped of those minerals, then got traces added back for marketing purposes. That's a markup of thousands of percent from source cost for a product that two international consumer protection groups specifically called out for deceptive advertising. When Canadians buy Smart Water, they're paying premium prices for degraded water wrapped in scientific-sounding marketing. That's not smart. That's expensive municipal water with a chemistry experiment. Number 11. Vitamin Water. Vitamin Water lines Canadian store shelves with colorful bottles, vitamin claims, and active lifestyle marketing. It looks healthy. It sounds healthy. But advertising regulators have repeatedly banned vitamin water claims in multiple jurisdictions. According to documented rulings, the UK Advertising Standards Authority banned vitamin water advertising twice for misleading consumers. Each 591 milliliter bottle contains approximately 27 grams of sugar. That's over 6 teaspoons of sugar per bottle. A second ban came when advertisements claiming enhanced hydration and nutritious were ruled misleading. Despite the nutritious claims, each bottle contains sugar levels comparable to soft drinks, while the actual vitamin content represents less than 0.5% of the liquid. What made it worse, according to investigations, Vitamin Water's website claimed spring water with fruit juice when only 3 of 8 flavors contained any juice whatsoever, all from concentrate, none fresh. When confronted, Coca-Cola admitted this was an incorrect description. In the United States, multiple class action lawsuits forced the company to add "with sweeteners" to labels and remove prohibited health claims. When Canadians pick up vitamin water thinking they're making a healthy choice, they're actually buying sugar water, 27 grams per bottle, with negligible vitamins, that has been banned twice in other countries for dishonest health claims. That's not enhanced nutrition. That's a soft drink disguised as health food. Number 10. Esca. Esca is marketed as pure Canadian spring water from Quebec with natural artesian sources and Canadian heritage. It's positioned as a premium domestic option in a market flooded with international brands, but recent testing has raised questions about what's actually in the bottle. According to testing patterns observed across the bottled water industry, including analysis that would apply to brands sourced and bottled in plastic containers, microplastic contamination is virtually universal. A University of Birmingham study testing bottled waters found 100% microplastic contamination across samples, averaging 37 microplastics per liter. While ESCA hasn't been subject to the same level of independent testing scrutiny as major international brands, the reality is that any water bottled in plastic containers faces the same contamination risks from the bottle material itself, the cap, and the bottling process. What's particularly relevant for Canadian consumers is the premium price point. ESCA often costs $2.50 to $3.50 per liter in Canadian stores, positioning itself as a superior choice to tap water, particularly in cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal, undergoes significantly more frequent testing and regulatory oversight than bottled water. As of this video's creation, Health Canada's bottled water regulations are less stringent than municipal water standards, with no mandatory testing frequency requirements comparable to what municipal systems undergo. When you're buying ESCA at premium prices, you're trusting that a bottled product with less regulatory oversight than tap water is worth 1,000 times the cost. That's a significant leap of faith for water that faces the same plastic contamination risks as any bottled brand. Number 9. Montclair. Montclair is Loblaw's private label spring water, positioned as an affordable Canadian option. You see it at Real Canadian Superstore, No Frills, and Loblaw's locations nationwide, often priced at $1 to $2 for a 1.5-liter bottle. The budget-friendly price makes it tempting, but store-brand waters come with their own concerns. According to industry-wide testing patterns, private label bottled waters face the same contamination issues as premium brands: microplastics, potential PFAS, and disinfection byproducts, but often with even less transparency about sourcing and testing. An environmental working group study that tested store-brand waters found that samples contained an average of 8 different contaminants ranging from disinfection byproducts to plastic chemicals. Some store brands showed contamination levels exceeding California's stricter bottled water standards. The fundamental problem with budget store-brand waters like Montclair is transparency. Unlike major brands that sometimes publish water quality reports under pressure, such as store brands rarely disclose detailed sourcing information, filtration methods, or independent testing results beyond what's legally required. Canadian regulations, as of this video's creation, don't require the same level of quality reporting for bottled water as they do for municipal tap water. This means Montclair and similar store brands can remain relatively opaque about what's actually in the bottle and where it came from beyond spring water. When you're choosing Montclair to save money, you're trading costs for almost complete lack of transparency about water quality and testing. You're getting water in the thin, leach-prone plastic with minimal information about what else might be in that bottle. Number 8. Aberfoyle. Aberfoyle Springs has been a Canadian water brand for decades, sourced from wells in Ontario. It's owned by Blue Triton, formerly Nestle Waters North America, and that ownership history tells a troubling story about water extraction in Canada. According to documented controversies over the years, Nestle/Blue Triton has faced intense criticism for water extraction practices in Ontario communities. During droughts and water restrictions affecting local residents, the company continued extracting millions of liters from sources including those feeding Aberfoyle production. In the community of Aberfoyle, Ontario, and in nearby Elora and Hillsburg, residents and environmental groups have repeatedly raised concerns about commercial water extraction taking priority over community water security. Reports from the time indicated that while residents faced conservation measures, commercial bottling operations continued at full capacity. In 2016 to 2017, as documented in Canadian news reports, there was significant public outcry when Nestlé outbid a local municipality for water rights to a well in Elora. The company paid $3.71 per million liters, essentially pennies, while local residents questioned why a private company should have priority over community water needs. What makes this particularly concerning is the inequity. Local communities that actually live on the land are told to conserve during drought conditions, while a corporation extracts millions of liters to bottle and sell for profit, often shipping that water far from the source community. When Canadians buy Aberfoyle, they're supporting a company with a documented history of controversial water extraction in Ontario communities during periods when local water security was a concern. That's not just buying water, that's supporting a business model that prioritizes profit over community needs. Number 7. Ice River Springs. Ice River Springs is a Canadian-owned brand from Ontario, often marketed as a homegrown alternative to foreign corporations. The company sources from protected underground springs and has promoted itself as environmentally conscious. But ownership and marketing claims aside, it faces the same fundamental issues plaguing the entire bottled water industry. According to testing patterns that apply across the industry, virtually all bottled water contains microplastics. That University of Birmingham study we mentioned earlier found 100% contamination across 85 samples from 17 brands tested. The plastics come from the bottles themselves, caps, and the bottling process. Ice River Springs bottles its water in plastic, specifically PET and rPET, recycled PET bottles. While the company has promoted its use of recycled plastic as environmentally friendly, the reality is that plastic is plastic when it comes to microplastic contamination. Heat, light exposure, and time all increase how much plastic leaches into the water. There's also the question of PFS, those forever chemicals that don't break down in the environment or in your body. According to Consumer Reports testing from 2020 that examined 47 bottled water brands, 47, approximately 63% of samples, contained detectable levels of PFAS. While Ice River Springs wasn't specifically named in that testing, the widespread nature of PFAS contamination in water sources across North America means no brand can confidently claim immunity. As of this video's creation, Canada has no mandatory PFAS limits for bottled water. Only guidelines that aren't legally enforceable. When you're buying Ice River Springs thinking you're choosing a cleaner Canadian option, you're still getting water in plastic bottles with the same microplastic and potential PFAS concerns as any other brand. Being Canadian-owned doesn't make the water cleaner or the plastic safer. Number 6. Canadian Springs. Canadian Springs is another domestic brand widely distributed across the country, owned by DS Services/Primo Water. It's marketed as natural spring water from Canadian sources, appearing in offices, homes, and retail locations. But like many brands in this industry, the marketing tells a cleaner story than the reality. First, let's address sourcing transparency. According to available information, Canadian Springs sources from multiple locations across Canada, but specific details about water source testing, contamination monitoring, and quality control measures aren't readily accessible to consumers. This lack of transparency is a pattern across many bottled water brands. The same industry-wide problems apply here. Microplastic contamination from plastic bottles, potential PFAS in source water, and significantly less regulatory testing than municipal water supplies undergo. Canadian tap water in major cities is tested thousands of times annually and results are publicly available. Bottled water testing much more opaque. What's particularly relevant for Canadian consumers is the carbon footprint question. Canadian Springs water is often trucked long distances across the country for distribution. Your bottle in Vancouver might come from Ontario, or vice versa. The environmental cost of transportation adds to an already problematic single-use plastic waste stream. According to environmental analyses of the bottled water industry, the carbon footprint of bottled water is up to 2,000 times higher than tap water when you account for production, transportation, and disposal. When Canadians choose Canadian Springs, they're paying for water with unknown testing transparency, transported long distances, packaged in single-use plastic that contributes to waste. All for a product that's likely no cleaner and possibly less clean than the tap water available in most Canadian municipalities. Number 5. Fiji Water. Fiji Water is that distinctive square bottle marketed as Earth's finest water from a remote Pacific aquifer. It's sold at premium prices in Canadian stores, often $3 to $5 per bottle, with marketing that evokes pristine tropical purity. But multiple scandals have shattered that image. According to testing conducted by Cleveland municipal officials in a famous confrontation, Fiji water contained 6.31 micrograms per liter of arsenic, while Cleveland's tap water had zero. Although this was below the 10 micrograms per liter federal limit at the time, the hypocrisy was striking. Fiji had been mocking Cleveland's tap water in advertising when their own product contained measurable arsenic. More recently, according to US regulatory notices and media reports, nearly 2 million bottles of Fiji water were recalled for quality concerns, including elevated manganese levels and the presence of certain bacteria. The FDA classified the recall as unlikely to cause serious health consequences, but it still meant pulling a huge amount of product off the market and raised questions about quality control at a brand that trades on pristine imagery. What makes Fiji especially controversial in the eyes of critics is the bigger picture. Every bottle is shipped thousands of kilometers from a remote island nation to North American shelves, creating a carbon footprint that researchers estimate can be thousands of times higher than simply drinking local tap water. And development groups have repeatedly pointed out that while premium Fiji water is exported worldwide, some local Fijian communities have struggled with reliable access to clean drinking water. So when Canadians pay $4 or more for that square bottle, they're not just buying imported artesian water. They're buying into a product that has faced recalls, lawsuits over purity claims, and serious questions from environmental and human rights advocates about who really benefits from that Earth's finest water branding. Number 4. Perrier. Perrier is the iconic green bottle of sparkling water from France owned by Nestlé, sold in Canadian restaurants, bars, and stores everywhere. It's marketed as naturally carbonated from a protected source in Vergès, France. The premium positioning suggests purity and European sophistication. But testing has revealed serious contamination problems. According to Consumer Reports testing published in 2020, Perrier samples contained PFAS levels of 1.1 parts per trillion, above the 1 PIPOT safety threshold recommended by environmental health groups like the Environmental Working Group. PFAS are called forever chemicals because once they enter your body, they accumulate and never break down. They're linked to kidney cancer, thyroid disease, and reproductive problems. But the contamination goes deeper than PFAS. According to French environmental studies, microplastics ranging from 1 to 121 particles per liter have been detected across bottled waters, with Perrier included in testing samples. These microscopic plastic fragments come from the bottle material itself, the cap, and the bottling process. Here's what makes this particularly concerning. You're not just having a one-time exposure. PFAS and microplastics can build up in the body and the environment over time. Every Perrier you drink adds a tiny amount to that lifetime load, even if each individual bottle is well below most legal limits. The irony is hard to ignore. Perrier markets itself as a protected source with natural purity and the French sophistication. Earth's first soft drink, as its heritage marketing likes to say. Yet independent testing has detected both man-made, forever chemicals and plastic particles in the very product sold as a symbol of refinement. When Canadians pay $2 or more per bottle for Perrier, they're paying premium prices for sparkling water that, like most bottled brands, carries trace contaminants that its marketing never mentions. Number 3. San Pellegrino. San Pellegrino is positioned as Italy's premium sparkling mineral water, owned by Nestlé, appearing in upscale Canadian restaurants and retailers for $2.50 to $4 per bottle. The Italian heritage and mineral water claims suggest quality and tradition. But San Pellegrino's contamination profile and parent company's scandal history tell a darker story. According to the same Consumer Reports testing that flagged Perrier, San Pellegrino tested at about 0.3 parts per trillion for PFAS. That's below the 1 part per trillion threshold some health advocates recommend, but it still means measurable forever chemicals in a product marketed as premium mineral water. Any detectable PFAS is still contamination, not purity. Microplastics are part of the story as well. Studies of bottled waters in Europe have found plastic particles across many sparkling brands, from the bottles themselves, the caps, and the bottling process. Even when the counts are relatively low, they underscore the gap between untouched natural mineral water in the ads and the reality of plastic packaging. What really shook consumer confidence, though, was reporting out of Europe in 2023 to 2024. French investigators and a Senate inquiry described what they called a potential multi-billion-euro industrial fraud involving Nestlé Waters. For over a decade, some of its European mineral waters were allegedly treated with unauthorized filtration systems to deal with contaminants like bacteria, pesticides, and PFAS, while still being sold as natural mineral water. Those allegations are still being investigated and Nestlé disputes wrongdoing, but they've already damaged trust in the company's water brands. So when you buy San Pellegrino in Canada, you're not just buying Italian heritage in a green bottle. You're buying from a parent company that regulators in Europe accuse of secretly filtering contaminated water and presenting it as naturally pure for years. Until those questions are fully resolved, it's hard to take any untouched by man marketing at face value. Number 2. Evian. Evian is everywhere in Canada. Major supermarkets, convenience stores, premium retailers, hotels. Danone markets it as natural spring water from the French Alps, emphasizing purity and protection. The pink-tinged label and alpine imagery suggest pristine mountain water untouched by contamination. But testing reveals that marketing fantasy doesn't match reality. According to French studies examining bottled water contamination, Evian was found to contain just a handful of microplastic particles per liter. Among the lowest levels detected in any brand tested, but still not zero, and still at odds with the natural and pure image on the label. A global study testing 259 bottles from 11 major brands found 93% contamination with microplastics. Evian was included in this testing. According to the research, bottled water contains approximately twice as many plastic particles as tap water, meaning you're paying 300 to 1,000 times more than tap water for something more contaminated than what flows from your kitchen sink. But contamination extends beyond plastics. According to reports, Swiss researchers discovered fungicide contamination in Evian samples, toxic pesticide residues directly challenging the brand's claims of natural spring water and the purity used to market Evian as laboratory-grade water. A United States lawsuit challenged Evian's natural spring water marketing, arguing that microplastic contamination makes the natural claim fundamentally deceptive. Under regulations, natural should mean free from synthetic additives not normally expected in the product. What makes this particularly absurd for Canadian consumers is Evian's premium pricing. In Canada, you're often paying $2.50 to $4 for a liter of Evian, water contaminated with microplastics and fungicides shipped across the Atlantic Ocean from France. When I see Evian on Canadian shelves now, I don't see alpine purity. I see microplastics, pesticides, and French marketing shipped 6,000 kilometers to charge Canadians triple the price of contaminated tap water. Number 1. Poland Spring. Poland Spring takes the number 1 spot on our list, and while it's primarily a US brand, it shows up in Canadian border regions and is starting to appear in more Canadian stores, which makes its ongoing legal fight very relevant. Poland Spring has been embroiled in a major class action lawsuit since 2017 over allegations that go straight to the heart of its marketing. The plaintiffs claim that not one drop of the billions of gallons of Poland spring water sold each year actually comes from a genuine natural spring as most people understand it. According to their court filings, the original Poland spring in Maine ran dry decades ago, and what's being sold today is ordinary groundwater pumped from wells, then routed through man-made spring structures and labeled as 100% natural spring water. Nestlé, the former owner, and Blue Triton, the current owner, strongly deny those claims. They argue that their sources meet the FDA's legal definition of spring water and that their withdrawals are licensed by state regulators. For several years, they tried to get the case thrown out entirely. But in 2024, a federal judge allowed key parts of the lawsuit to move forward, meaning a court will now have to decide whether the water in those bottles truly qualifies as spring water under US law. What makes this case so explosive is the scale. Poland Spring is one of the largest bottled water brands in North America. If the plaintiffs ultimately prove their allegations, it would mean that for decades, millions of consumers have been paying premium prices for groundwater packaged and marketed as something far more special. Add in the environmental concerns from large-scale water extraction in Maine that locals say stresses aquifers and ecosystems to the mountains of plastic waste. And you can see why Poland Spring has become a lightning rod. When Canadians see it on store shelves near the border, they're looking at a brand that's not just facing contamination questions, but a live court battle over whether its core spring water promise is even true. So what should Canadians drink? The evidence points to a clear answer: Canadian municipal tap water with a quality home filter. Cities like Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal, and most Canadian municipalities have tap water that undergoes thousands of tests annually, far more rigorous oversight than bottled water receives. A quality water filter, whether a pitcher filter, faucet mount, or under sink reverse osmosis system, removes the trace contaminants that can appear in tap water while keeping beneficial minerals. You're getting genuinely cleaner water than any bottle on this list, at a fraction of 1% of the cost. The average Canadian household spending $500 to $1,000 annually on bottled water can invest $100 to $300 in a quality filtration system and recoup that cost in months while eliminating plastic waste, supporting local water infrastructure instead of corporations with questionable ethics, and avoiding the microplastic and PFAS contamination that's virtually universal in bottled water. Knowledge is power. Now you know what's actually in those bottles: the contamination, the deception, the scandals they don't advertise on the label. You can make informed choices that protect your health, your wallet, and the environment. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you been buying any of these brands? And if you found this investigation valuable, share it with someone who needs to know the truth about what they're drinking.